Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Micah and Steve.
Hello, hello, hello.
And welcome back to another exciting episode
Of Live,
Let
Thrive. What is up, Micah, man?
I am chilling, man. How you doing, Stevie Stacks?
I was trying to stay alive from this coronavirus thing, you know? Trying to duck and dive.
I just saw one.
You saw one?
One walked around my kitchen. I stepped on it, so it's dead now.
Well, that is a voice that you are all familiar with, I'm sure. It is the great Jasper Rivers joining us.
Jasper is back.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
On episode 118, no less. And he was also on episode like 3 or something.
Yeah. What? Yeah. How many? Have you been on? 2, 3? Is your third?
I think it's been 2 actually.
2.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is his third episode.
Third.
And Jasper is host of Get Paid for Your Pad and author of Get Paid for the Pad book, a book that's launched many people's Airbnb careers, and a podcast that's also launched many people's Airbnb careers. It's like the biggest one on the planet about Airbnb, STR, all that stuff. And we're lucky enough to have him today, and it's gonna be a great show.
I'm excited, boys.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First question for Jasper. Where are you right now, and why are you there?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego. I teamed up with Eric Miller, and we're building a bunch of cool stuff out here. So we've been working together for a while, but in being in different time zones, it doesn't really work. So I decided to just come down to San Diego. We rented a pretty cool spot here on the bay, and we're cranking out some good content over here. So
Explain
exciting.
that, because I heard you talk about it on your show, but it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool spot, man. It's like our HQ right now.
It's like a 10-bedroom, or what is it? 10-bed house, or what is it?
Well, it's a free bedroom, but the guy who owned it, he was a sailor, and he did this sailing race every year. And so he would invite his whole team. And so what he did is he built these Murphy beds into the wall. So we got like 10 Murphy beds that you can literally pull out of the wall. There's some behind me here in the office that I can pull out. So it's pretty cool. So we can host some events in the future, get some people over, do a little masterminding, stuff like that.
That's like an Airbnber's wet dream right there. 10 Murphy beds.
Exactly.
All over the place, yeah.
And they're all handcrafted, and the guy must have invested quite a bit of money into it.
Shit. Even the like off the shelf ones that'll cost you like $8,000 to put one in, man. They're crazy expensive.
They are, but they're beautiful. They're awesome.
So Jasper, let's get to it. So you do your Airbnb thing, and I know right now the world's in pandemic, as they call it, due to the coronavirus. In your markets that you host in or operate in, what have you been seeing as the effects of the coronavirus on the Airbnb market, a short-term rental market?
Sure. So, I mean, I've got a property in Colombia. Colombia hasn't had any cases, or maybe like 1 or 2 in Bogota. So my market, Cali, has not been affected yet. And then my other places are, one of my places in the Philippines, but that's in a managed resort. I haven't even looked at it. I'm afraid to look at that.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see. But I manage a boutique hotel in Egypt. We haven't really seen any problems there, but that's in the middle of nowhere. So I almost feel like if you have something that's really in the middle of nowhere, you can almost do well in this environment, because that's where people want to go, right? They want to go somewhere in the middle of nowhere where there's no people. That's exactly our spot in Egypt. So.
I'm so happy you brought that up, because I actually just made a video before we hopped on. I'm making a quick video. I'll be launching it tonight at like 8:30 about that. And I was saying the markets where people are going are the ones middle of nowhere, less traveled. Well, not really less traveled, but just kind of out in the boonies, not getting the whole coronavirus crap. So I'm happy you brought that up, man. So that is definitely one thing to look at. So
yeah, for sure. But yeah, man. I mean, we have a lot of people in our communities, and we're seeing a lot of people struggling right now. I think bookings are down 50% year over year around Europe and US. Some of the markets, obviously in Asia and Japan, South Korea, but also other countries in Asia like Vietnam, Thailand. We're seeing hosts that are getting almost all their bookings canceled. So it's really affecting the SDR community in a big way right now.
So as far as stuff's getting canceled, what would your suggestion be to offset the cancellations?
Yeah, so it's tricky, right? Because there's this policy. It's called the extenuating circumstances policy. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And so, a lot of cancellations come in under that policy, which means that even if you have a moderate or strict cancellation policy, you're not getting any of your money, right? The guests are getting full refunds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. Now we've had reports of Airbnb hosts saying that even guests who are not under that policy, they're not coming from a risk country, or it's not an emergency. Like for example, in Florida, they called out an emergency or something, and now suddenly it does fall under the policy. So it's a little bit unclear sometimes. But what we've been getting reports from Airbnb hosts where Airbnb allowed the guests to cancel and get a free refund, a full refund, even though according to them they were not under the policy. So those are just some reports that we've seen. But in general, yeah, what can you do about the cancellations? Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. I say if you get a guest who wants to cancel, like maybe ask them to book a future date. Tell them like, hey, why don't you move it to 2 or 3 months from now? Maybe by then all the trouble is over. I think another thing you can do is communicate with your guests through the Airbnb messaging system, and just let them know, inform them about the situation in your market, right? Especially if you're in a market where the coronavirus hasn't really arrived yet. Because people are just afraid of traveling in general right now, and they might not be aware of what the situation is, but they're just afraid, so they want to cancel, right? So if you can let them know that there's no outbreak in your area yet, and you're doing a lot of things to keep your home clean, maybe you can make your guests feel more comfortable, and as a result, they might not cancel.
See, and that's one thing. Like someone brought that up to me. They're like, "Hey, they're letting the guests know beforehand. Hey, the place is clean. Coronavirus." I was kind of had a stigma about that. I'm like, man, if I kind of put that on myself, I don't know if they will or won't cancel. So I was kind of hesitant on just kind of being up front with it. Has it worked for you, or know somebody that it's worked for?
I mean, I haven't seen any cancellations in my places, but yeah, I mean, I think you don't necessarily want to bring it up before they bring it up. I mean, if a guest starts talking about canceling, then I mean that would be the first thing that I would say. I would say like, hey, Colombia is corona free. You're safe here. In fact, you're probably safer here than where you are right now. So you should probably come over.
Stay a while.
Yeah,
I consider myself a mostly fearless traveler. And, I've always stayed at Airbnbs, and I was actually supposed to be in Mexico this week, and we're going to Guadalajara. We're going to stay at Lake Chapala, the biggest lake in Mexico. We had a little trip planned for spring break, and that was up until last week, and everything was going good. And man, just a few days ago, I just said, man, I don't fear catching the virus. As I was telling Micah earlier, I fear the government's reactions right now to the virus. 'Cause I've never seen nothing like this ever. I mean, because they're keeping cruise ships from docking. They're keeping, they're quarantining people. They quarantined the whole country of Italy. And it's just like, I'm afraid that if I did go somewhere out internationally, that I might not be let back into my country. And that's my biggest fear. And I have 2 little ones too. So
Sure.
If I was the traveling Dutchman like yourself, I wouldn't have those fears. Maybe you do have those fears. I don't know. But I have like my little family that's tagging along with me, and I don't want to be stuck somewhere that I don't want to be,
I mean, I don't have any fear at all. So
I know you don't.
Coronavirus, SARS, like swine flu, like I don't care.
yeah, You've been to many shady clubs in many places of the world, so you're immune, I'm sure.
No, but you know what? One thing that is worth mentioning is I was talking to Zayfa earlier, who used to host Get Paid for Your Pat with me, and he's not afraid of the virus himself, and I think a lot of people are, because a lot of people realize that if you're healthy, then it's probably not really going to affect you, but you could infect other people, right? So he's worried about visiting his parents, for example, right? And I think that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that before, but yeah, it's not just about your own health, and you're talking about your kids, of course. So you don't want to go out there and catch it and then bring it back home, right?
Exactly. So I had to unfortunately cancel. I didn't hear nothing from the host at all. I just, how Airbnb asks you a reason for cancellation, and I put in there, fears for international travel due to coronavirus. I actually put that in there, but it wasn't a strict cancellation policy, so I was able to get a full refund. Sure. So and they didn't. I guess they didn't reach out to me for canceling. They probably I'm probably not the first one to cancel on them.
No, I mean, I'm probably not. Although Mexico, I think hasn't really seen any cases yet, has it?
But that's where they make Corona.
Yeah, I know. I heard that Corona sales are down like 20%, 25%. I think eventually it might be a good thing though for them, because I mean, if somebody invents a new virus, or one of those bets brings over a new virus in the future, they can totally call it the Get Paid for Your Pet virus. I'm cool with that. That will give me so much exposure, and it'll be great.
You should host a coronavirus party at your place in San Diego. I'll go. I'll be there.
Speaking of San Diego, so you're based out of San Diego now. Do you have any Airbnbs out there, or no?
Not yet, but we're planning on picking up some properties here in the future. Now, just to be clear, like right now, I'm visiting. In order to really be based here, I got to get one of those visas. So we'll see how what happens to the world in the next 2-3 months. I don't really want to make too many future plans right now with all this stuff going on, but yeah, definitely planning to be here more in the future.
Okay. Yeah, so
cool.
So can you go into what it is that you and Eric have going on with your whole Airbnb? I think, what do you guys call it, the Profit Club or Short-Term Rental Legends, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of things going on right now. We've been doing the Short-Term Rental Legends, which is a mastermind for people that have over 25 properties. So we've done 2 of them so far, one in Puerto Rico, one in Colombia just last month, which was pretty incredible. We stayed at this 16th century mansion in the heart of the old town of Cartagena. It was incredible. We had about 25 people there. And we're also... Yeah, we have the Short-Term Rental Profit Academy, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we have our students. So these are people that have either 0 properties, they have 1 or 2 properties, but they're planning on expanding, right? So we're helping them to pick up more properties, run their business more efficiently, all of that. We do weekly coaching calls on Zoom, just like you guys and I are doing right now. So we can see each other on video, and it's really fun. It's really fun to connect with everybody, and it also allows us to really get a good idea of what's going on in the world of Airbnb and short-term rentals.
So Micah's got like 400 something. He should be part of y'all's group.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you should go down next time we have our event. You'll be our guest of honor.
I might come. I'll see. Where's the next one at?
That's a good question.
In China.
That's a good question. We have a few properties that we're eyeing. We wanna upgrade every time we do a new event. We want it to be like, the next level. Mm-hmm. And so the first one was pretty cool, and the second one was just insane. It was so cool. So now we set the bar pretty high, and so we're pretty picky with the properties. Like, we want everybody to be able to stay in the same house. It can't be too far from the U.S. because U.S. Canada, that's where most of our operators are. Okay. So we don't want to make them fly all around the world, and especially now with the virus and everything. I think we want to wait and see a little bit, see where this goes. Because if you rent one of those properties, you gotta put up a pretty big deposit, right? So you always take a little bit of risk just putting that on, investing the money. So right now, I think we're just focusing on just creating a lot of good content for people out there, and we're very focused on helping our students in the Short-Term Rental Profit Academy to grow their businesses. So I think that we'll focus on that in the next couple of months.
Now, Jasper, I know you like rub shoulders with Airbnb elites, right? And how do you think this whole coronavirus thing is gonna affect the Airbnb's IPO?
Oh yeah, I think it'll get pushed off. I mean, I can't imagine that they would do the IPO this year under these circumstances, because it's not just the coronavirus, right? It's also there's other stuff that's been going on in the IPO market that is not necessarily favorable. We had WeWork that canceled their IPO. We had, of course, we've seen the stock markets crashing. I mean, I don't think this is a great time to be IPOing. I don't think there's going to be a lot of
they should have done it last
interest necessarily at this point in time. So I don't know. I mean, if this whole virus thing dies out in the next couple of weeks, which I'd be very surprised if it does, then and the markets recover, then who knows? Maybe they'll do the IPO in the summer or the fall. But I mean, if I was a betting man, which just to be clear, I'm not. But if I was a betting man, I'd bet against. I bet against it.
And let's talk for a minute about the arbitrage game. That's a big hot word in the Airbnb community. And so, do you see everybody's talking about doing this now? Do you think it's still a smart move, or do you think buying properties and doing Airbnb yourself that way is the better move, or I don't know, is there a mix that's good?
I mean, I sent out an email to my list like a week ago, where I was voicing some concerns about the current environment. I was a trader back in 2007 when the whole financial crisis started, and I don't want to spook anybody, but I just see some similarities. Yes, I wouldn't want to take on too much risk in this environment, just because I think there's a chance, and again, nobody can predict the future. I hope that the economy does well, and I hope the coronavirus dies off pretty as soon as possible. But at the same time, I just think this is a environment where there's a chance that we're going to go through a downturn. So instead of buying and renting to re-rent the arbitrage, what we are teaching our students right now is go for the management model, go for the model where you're managing somebody else's units, because then you don't have too much risk.
Yeah, create the system and sell the system. I like it. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what we're recommending.
Okay, now by managing other people's units, do you mean doing like full leases, like an arbitrage where you lease someone's place for a year and then you rent it out yourself as Airbnb, or what?
No. So I guess there's three models, right? Like you can either own a property, you can buy it, or you can lease it and release it on Airbnb, or you can partner with the landlord where you say, hey, I have a solution for your property. I noticed that you're having trouble renting it out long term. How about I manage it for you? I'll put it on Airbnb and we split the profits, right? You take 25, 30%, and then you give the landlord 70, 75%. So that way you don't have to invest, and you're not committing to a big investment. You're not signing a lease. If you sign a lease, and to be honest with you, what I've seen recently is that the leasing and releasing, that market has gotten fairly competitive, and so I've actually seen people in our communities getting out of leases because it's not as profitable anymore. I mean, when I started Airbnb in 2012, you could make 2-3 times the rent on Airbnb, and I'm sure there's markets where that's still the case, but I think in a lot of markets that's getting a little little trickier, right? The competition has increased a lot, and so right now I think you taking on some risk. You got to put up a couple months of rent, unless you negotiate with the owner that you don't have to pay any month's rent up front. Often you have to pay a deposit, so you're looking at 2-3 times the rent right there. And then also, if you have to make some investments in the property, right? So if you partner with a landlord, then you can negotiate for them to make those investments, right? Because the way you explain it is like, hey, this is your house. In order to do well on Airbnb, we need some extra furniture, we need some maintenance issues that have to be solved and whatnot. But that's an investment in the property, right? As a result, the property actually appreciates, right? I mean, you have to maintain your properties, right? So the only real cost that you have up front in that situation is not very much at all, right? You just need to create the Airbnb listing. You need to have some technology in place to help manage, but you don't really have to invest a lot.
See, I love that. Go ahead, Micah.
What I was going to say was, because what you're saying is you're lowering your risk. And this is kind of something I was thinking about, and I think should, like on one podcast, I listen to Bigger Pockets, he goes, one good thing you can always learn is rare and valuable skills. So one rare and valuable skill right now in the Airbnb market that's not there and nobody's really on it is, first off, most arbitragers don't understand real estate, and most real estate people don't understand arbitraging. So if you can fill that gap and where both, you can be very valuable to the market. Let me say, the next dangerous person in the Airbnb and real estate game is going to be a syndicator who understands arbitraging. Once you mix those two, you're unstoppable out here. Unstoppable, because you're raising other people's money. Then you can go get those leases because you already have access to the property. And that's what I'm trying to get into. So that kind of, I need to come to the short-term rental legends, and we got to talk, because I have a bunch of stuff up here that I'm doing. And
man. And what you're saying is very true. I mean, it's when we were in Colombia, in Cartagena, on our last Legends event, we actually had some of our legends who were looking at a boutique hotel that they wanted to manage, right? And they could just see how much opportunity there was. And but they didn't really know, how do you raise money, right? How do you get in touch with investors, right? They didn't really know how to play that game. But then one of our other legends was actually he already invested in some of these boutique hotels, so he knew exactly how to do that. So during the 4 days that we were in Colombia, they actually came together. He called up his contacts, and they put a deal together. In 4 days' time, they put a deal together on a boutique hotel. So I think you're absolutely right.
It's a beautiful thing. Real quick, because what you're proposing, I really like that. Because I've been I got a little carried away listening to gurus and stuff. There's a shitload of Airbnb gurus out there right now, and and as you're aware, I'm sure, Jasper, I'm not saying you're the real deal. But there's a crap load of these annoying gurus. Anyways, I was trying to find these arbitrages and stuff, and it works for a lot of people. But the thing is that what you're proposing is being partners with the landlord. Now, how would this work? Would you okay, let's say the rent, whatever, $1,500 a month or whatever he has to pay for whatever, $1,500 a month. So if y'all made $3,000 a month, like $1,500 in profit, would y'all just split it like 750 or like 50-50, or how does it work?
Well, I mean, there's different ways to set it up, but typically what we see is that people will charge anywhere from about 20 to 30%, depending what that includes. I mean, you can set it up different ways, right? I mean, there's costs, there's cleaning costs. There's you want to have maybe a house porter who's checking in with the guests and the maintenance. You need some technology. So it also depends on like what costs you want to push on to the owners and what you take for yourself, right? But yeah, in general, I'd say if you find a place and you rent it out for about $3,000, and excluding cleaning costs, because what you usually do is you just get the cleaning fees and you use that to pay for the cleaning. So that's kind of outside the whole calculation. But if you gross 3,000 on Airbnb, you would then like take 25% of that, right? Which is 750. So you take that, then maybe you subtract some expenses, and let's say you subtract like 250 or something, and then you pay the owner 2,000, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you just take that 750, you cover all expenses within that 750, and you pay the owner 2,250. I think it depends on the number of factors, right? If you rent out like a luxury property, right, and it's grossing like 10K, you can go down to your percentage, right? Because if you're doing like 15%, that's still $1,500 for one property, right? Mm-hmm. If you managing, I manage this boutique hotel, like it's a kite surfing school essentially in Egypt, and there the rates are very, very low. So if I'm getting like 15%, I'm not really making much, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm getting like 30%. And that's including also the money that people spend on the extra services that we offer, like the kite surfing, the rentals, and all of that. So that's a pretty good deal for me. But yeah, it depends, man. It depends a bit on the situation. It depends on how profitable the listing is, and you have to negotiate, of course, with the landlords, right?
Yeah, and so do you have a pitch that you use that works pretty good? Could you like give us an example?
I mean, I'm not really the expert on renting out other people's properties. Just to be clear, my business partner Eric, like that's his thing. Like he's focused on that since 2015, and he built up a portfolio of like 100 units here in San Diego. So that's how we teamed up together. Like he's really the expert on. He's really good at finding these units and convincing the landlords. He's got a lot of systems in place, right? What he does, he sends like little bomb videos to realtors and builds relationships with people in the real estate community in San Diego. And once you have all those connections and you throw workshops, people start seeing you as the expert, right? And so now when a realtor or landlord or anybody in the real estate space, if there's a property that they're looking for a solution for, they're the first person they'll call is Eric, because they know that he's the man who does that, right? So I think in order to pitch the landlords, I think you need to, like anything in business, you need to think about relationships. You need to build relationships with people, and you need to show value, right? You need to bring people value. So if you go to realtors and you just you give them a model, you say like, hey, if you know anybody who's having trouble renting out the properties, or people who've bought a property and they're not sure what they're doing with it, here's a solution, here's the numbers, here's how it works, here's my business card, feel free to call me, right? Now the realtor can use that as a way to make the sale on the house. Mm-hmm. They can tell the buyer like, hey, by the way, if you buy this house, here's how much you can make on Airbnb, and I know somebody who can manage it for you. You don't have to do anything. You see what I mean? So it's all about building relationships and creating win-win situations. I mean, there's many, many ways to find these landlords. Of course, you can go on the street and just look for a to rent sign, right? And just call the owner and say, hey, I've got a solution. Or you could say like, hey, can I view the home? And then you build that relationship when you're at the home, right? So it's a lot of different ways, but I think, what I think is most effective is, and it's a bit of a long-term strategy, but what I think is most effective is just create an image of yourself as the expert in the short-term rental business in your area, and let everybody know that you're the expert, and then build relationships with anybody who knows investors, landlords, realtors, that whole real estate space. You build the relationships, and then the business will come to you, right?
Yes,
I like
sir.
that. I like that.
People don't know that. Yeah, you got to see your value.
Yeah, you're not a businessman. You're a businessman. So, oh man,
We started with Corona, but
we started with the coronavirus, so we've gone all over the place. Your podcast is huge, still huge, right? Still the number one Airbnb podcast.
I think so.
It's up there. So how did you? I know there's a lot of people on here that are interested in the podcasting side too. How did you? How were you able to grow it so big?
Well, I mean, given the fact that I've been doing it since 2014, I would almost say, how did it not grow more than it did? No, I mean, I did this as a hobby for a very long time. And I think the reason that it's grown is just consistency. You know, I've been pumping out these podcasts since 2014. It's almost 6 years, right? And so, you know, I don't think I did a very good job at actively growing it. It just grew because I just kept doing it.
And you were the only one for a while, right?
And yeah, exactly. Like the first couple of years, I don't think there was a lot of people out there. Maybe one or two, but not a lot. Not like now.
Yeah, not like because we're aboard too. You know, we're a fellow competitor.
Yeah.
So we're like right now in the short-term rental game. Where are you headed? Like what's your vision right now?
I mean, you know, for me, what I am most passionate about is the education and creating content, right? I mean, that's the reason I'm still here after 6 years, you know. I mean, I love Airbnb. It's never really been my ambition to grow like a giant property management company. You know, back in the day, I had a lot of people suggest that to me. But you know, for my business, I kind of like to keep it lean, and you know, I own 3 properties. You know, I manage that boutique hotel. I manage some units for students, for clients, but you know, I don't need to have 200 units. What I love is the education, and I love trying new things, right? So, you know, that thing I'm doing in Egypt, I mean, you know, it's a bit crazy because it's like in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you know, it doesn't even have an address. It's literally in the desert on the ocean. So, you know what I mean? Like one of the reasons I'm doing it is just because it's fun. It's something new. You know, I was just curious. Like, I wonder if this Airbnb works here, right? And so I created that partnership. But I'm most passionate about the education, right? So helping our students, and you know, I'm excited to you know, pick up a few units if I eventually end up being here in San Diego full time. I would love to, you know, I'd love to get a few units and just turn them into kind of case studies, and get involved in the local, you know, local community and all of that. But yeah, for me, it's just, I like creating content. I like doing podcasts. I like doing videos. I love the short-term rental profit academy that we're doing now, just to be on the coaching calls with these students and see them making progress and just connecting with people. You know, I think that's what I'm most passionate about.
And how does one become a short-term rental profit academy student?
Well, one would have to sign up for our program. We actually did just open it up. So what we do is we don't have a constant flow of students. So what we do is we every so often we do a launch, right, where we open it up and we get a batch of students in the program. But if you go to short-term rental profitacademy.com, you'll find some more information there on how to join.
Cool.
That's cool. You got a new book in the works?
I'm updating Get Paid for Your Pad right now because
nice.
There's been so many changes, you know. So we're gonna get a new version of the book out. Now I've been talking about that for a while, and you know, it's been getting postponed for various reasons, but yeah, no, I mean, this year it's definitely going to happen.
Hey, are you on any of the Cash Apps or anything like that? The PayPals or anything?
PayPal.
You on PayPal?
I am on
okay,
PayPal.
because I still want my autograph copy, and I have to get it directly from you. See, is that cool? You can mail me an autograph copy.
I can do that, man. Yeah,
Awesome.
I have to get some copies myself actually here because right now
Oh.
I don't actually have any myself.
Come on,
But
come on,
yeah,
man. You
we
gotta have
can.
some.
You don't have to pay me for that.
Oh,
I'll have my private helicopter chauffeur deliver it to your door.
Uber helicopter. I love it. Um, Man, I had a bunch of stuff to ask you. I have a bunch of stuff to ask you. Now that we got the great Jasper with us, automation, because you're okay. Because you were telling us about how you're gonna, or how a lot of people. I like how you're following your passion. You're like not getting sidetracked and stuff by following, making it turn it into a job. And I know you fear doing like a job thing, right? Yeah, that's one of your fears. What about having a 9 to 5?
It's just kind of this doesn't really excite me.
Yeah, and you get to you get to live this exciting life. And I bet you have people all over the world say, "Hey, Jasper, come stay with me for free for a few months if you want." I bet that you get that all the time because you're super popular and super cool guy. And then you help people. You're helping people on their Airbnb game. You might have people be making people like thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, who knows? But you're happy where you are doing your thing and traveling the globe and helping people out. So you've built a lifestyle. So it's lifestyle first for you, and I dig that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean now it's changing a little bit, right? Because I'm getting a little bit more serious now with partnering with Eric and doing the STR Legends and the Profit Academy. I actually have to, I get up at 6 a.m. now. Believe it or not, the first thing we do is we jump in the cold bay water right in front of our apartment, just to wake up, cold plunge. And then, we do a 15-minute Tony Robbins priming meditation. We put it on the TV. And then we give each other a fist bump and we say, let's crush it. And then we get to work, which is kind of a bit of a change from what I've been doing in the last 6 years. Just kind of traveling around and, working a couple hours a day and doing other things. Right. So it's a bit of a change, but yeah, it's exciting, man. It's exciting.
So your average,
good.
Your average work day, what does that consist of after the cold shower and the fist bump? The cold
cold shower. Y'all don't go take cold showers together, right?
Dude, it's yeah, it's pretty much where you see behind me, you can see some sheets on the walls, some paper sheets with core values and goals and all sorts of stuff, right? So yeah, we're really focused on growing essentially the number one education and media company in hospitality in the world, and that's a lot of work. So we hired some people. So we got we got team huddles, team calls, coaching calls. Like there's pretty much busy all day, man, until like 6, 7, and then I might have like a glass of wine or two somewhere, and then I'm in bed by 9 or 9:30.
Oh damn.
But
then again, you're tackling your passion, so it's like not even it is work, but it's not even like work that you hate.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is. I mean, talking to you guys doesn't feel like work.
No, we make it fun. Real quick on the automation front, because like I know you're not the one trying to accumulate 200 rentals or whatever, but if there are people out there trying to do that, trying to either arbitrages or trying to partner with landlords, what automation apps would you suggest for them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I actually just recorded a podcast on that because one of our legends is a bit of a genius. He's tried out all these different softwares, and so that podcast will be live in a few weeks. But from my perspective, what I've seen, and some of this, I've used some of these tools, but most of my knowledge comes from talking to people on the podcast. Looking at what Eric does with his properties, and then all of the legends, right? So I think when it comes to, well, there's a few different categories, right? There's automated pricing, right? I think that's a really important one, right? There's beyond pricing, there's wheelhouse, there's price labs. Now, I think they all work pretty well. People have different preferences, but I think they're all good, right? And then there's online guidebooks. I love online guidebooks because I think it's such a better way to present information in a guidebook than in an email or PDF. So you still want to do your messaging on Airbnb, but to send people a beautiful guidebook, I think is a really good idea. It makes you look professional, and people consume it, so people consume the information, so you don't get too many questions. So I love Hostly. There's TouchStay as well. And then there's the PMS systems. So for those who want to manage multiple units, you manage like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, you can get away without a PMS. But if you manage more, you're going to drive yourself crazy if you don't have it. So what's out there, right? There's a whole range of tools out there. I don't think there's one that's necessarily the best. It depends on your situation, in your setup. What platforms are you on? One thing you want to keep in mind is if you're only using Airbnb, then you can use pretty much all of them. But if you're using different platforms, then you got to make sure that those tools have a direct integration with these platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do iCal syncing, but direct integration is always the best. But I can tell you some of the tools that I really like. Number one, Smart BNB. I think Smart BNB is awesome. I think that's something that you can use in combination with some of the other PMSs. I don't think Smart BNB in itself is right now the best PMS, but it definitely has the best messaging. And that's also how it started. Right? It's an automated messaging platform. It has artificial intelligence. It has so many different features that I use it, and I think it's amazing. But if you're scaling, you might want to use something else on top of that, and that's what a lot of the legends I see doing. Is they're using Smart BNB, but then they're also using Your Porter, for example. Mm-hmm. Right? That's a combination that I see a lot. I like Your Porter as well. I'm actually going to start using that pretty soon because I'm integrating with Booking.com, and Your Porter supports Airbnb and Booking.com. So that's a good choice. IGMS is a really good choice for people who are starting out because you can use it for free for up to 4 properties. So if you have 2, 3, 4 properties, you can use IGMS for free, which is great. But you can use it. Eric uses it for 100 properties, right? So you can use it for more properties as well. But I think it's a really good choice if you're starting out. And then there's the platforms that have the most integrations, but they're also the most expensive, right? Guesty, everybody knows Guesty. They typically charge, I think it's 3%, which is a lot. But then they have all the integrations, so that might make sense if you're really big. Other ones like Hostfully, Streamline are some systems that the larger managers are using. There's a whole. I'm just naming a few. There's probably like 100 of them. So I would say, do some research, because when we were in Colombia and we asked people what software do you use, we get 10 different answers, right? Out of like 25 people, we get 10 different answers. So it's just, there's no one software that is perfect for everybody.
I guess it just shows how fragmented this industry still is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that means there's room for there's opportunity out there
for someone to bring it all together in one thing, right? That's what they're doing. That's what Jasper.
That's what we're all trying. It's complicated. It's a complicated thing.
One real quick thing about guidebooks, and I never even thought of getting one when I was doing Airbnbs. Currently, my Airbnbs are shut down because all the cities in North Texas are shutting down Airbnbs. But when I was doing Airbnbs, I had thought about getting one, and then, whatever. I was like, I've been to people's houses where they have the thing on the coffee table, and I've glanced through it. It's like, whatever. But the place we were supposed to stay at this week in Mexico before we canceled was they had one. I think it was Hostfully that did it, but I don't know who did it. It was an online one, and so right away after we booked, it sent us that thing, and it answered like almost every question I had about the area and what to do there, and all these. Cause I've never been to this certain particular area, and I was like, wow! And it even had like pictures of the places and maps. It had everything. I was like, holy crap! I've been missing out, because that right there, just getting the guidebook sending it to your guests right away saves you from getting bombarded with 100 questions. And I was like, man, when I get back into Airbnb and again, I'm definitely going to do the guidebooks for sure.
Yeah, dude, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It makes you look very professional. Plus, those online guidebooks, they're fun. You know, it's something that you want to check out because, like you said, it has like map functionality, so you can kind of zoom in, zoom out, see what's around, see what restaurants are there. It makes it fun, and that's why people consume the information. And like you said, like, you know, you get fewer questions as a result. You get better customer experience. It's a win-win.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yes, sir. You got some questions lined up? Oh, Mike is looking at. I was going to ask, since you've been doing podcasts so long, what makes a good interviewer?
A good interviewer. That's a good question, man. Like, honestly, you know, the way that I operate is I tend to just dive into something and just start doing it without really having a plan. That's why me and Eric work really well together, because Eric likes to have a plan, and so we are like opposing forces. But yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I hope I'm doing a good job, yeah, and people definitely reach out to me and they say that I'm doing a good job. But if you ask me what is it that a good interviewer, the one I can tell you some observations that I had. Number one, it's, you know, some people, you ask them a question and they will talk for 5 minutes, whereas other people, they respond in one short sentence. You know, it's like pulling teeth, right? And so those are the most challenging interviews. And so kind of, I think one thing you have to do is you have to learn, how do you deal with different types of guests, and how do you create a good podcast regardless of, you know, who your guest is. But also I think, you know, you want to prepare some, which I usually don't do, to be honest. But I mean, you know, if I look at like, how can I improve, I should probably, you know, spend a little bit more time thinking of questions, sending the guests a question sheet as well, so that they know what they're getting into. Because I like to wing it, you know. So I get people on, and I'll be like, "Right, you ready to go?" Boom, and then whoa! I thought you were going to give me the questions first. I thought this was an intake, conversation. I didn't know we were going to dive right into it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, what do you want to know?" And they're like, well, "I'm not prepared." Like, so
tell them you're giving them the raw information.
I know, right? It's but you know what? Like we were talking about, you know, doing video on the podcast. Now that we, you know, me and Eric are here in this apartment, we have a little office. I definitely want to take it to the next level and start doing like video interviews. I'm very inspired by Joe Rogan. And by the way, talking about coronavirus, he just did one on coronavirus with some virus scientist guy, and it was a bit scary, and, you know, sort of the predictions that he made on that podcast. But I mean, I love listening to Joe Rogan, and I think the way that he does it is really awesome. And that's kind of how I want to model Get Paid for Your Pad podcast in the future.
Yeah, JR, he kills it, man.
I love listening to his podcast too, because I mean, he goes everywhere from, you know, having just getting stoned with his buddies on there, all the way to like having scientists on there. He covers the whole spectrum, but every single one of them is like super interesting because he knows all this crap, and he just has like this photographic memory, so he remembers stuff. He can actually converse with his buddies, or he can converse with these scientists and doctors, and in like a high level way. This is like amazing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, what's a good podcast interviewer? You know, I would look at him, right? Like, yeah. I think, and what are his qualities? I think number one, he's unfiltered. Like he speaks his truth, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't adjust his opinions, or he just says whatever he thinks, right? And so he's very authentic. So I think that's something that's good.
It was cool about it. I mean, even if it's like a guest he totally disagrees with, he finds something in them that that he pulls out that I don't know, that they need to reach a common ground, or he sees a different perspective. He isn't just trying to interview one type of guest that believes in everything he does. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's how I think we should all converse. You know, as I
Yeah.
get on this little pedestal real quick. But yeah, if we all converse like that, it'll be such a better world. You know, just there's Democrats over here, Republicans, or whatever the hell you are, and then people are like, screw them. But like if they all just sat down and talk, we have more in common than we think we do. And that's what his show's all about.
Yeah, exactly. I really love how he doesn't always agree with everyone, but at the same time, he's not being egotistical about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Now, the Airbnb world, have we reached a saturation point yet?
I don't think so. I think we still have a long way to go. I mean, obviously now with the coronavirus, we'll have to see what happens, and this, is probably going to cause a slowdown. But I think, in the long term, we look like 5 or 10 years from now, I think there's going to be a lot more listings than now. Maybe not in certain markets, but I think on the world, if you look at the whole world, I think there's still a lot of growth.
Now, could you compare it to something like that, like from the past, that governments have tried to contain, whereas once Pandora's box was open, it's too late kind of thing? Like a technology from the past saying, oh, these rotary telephones are going to be the ruin of everybody. You know what I'm saying? We should limit how many people can have, or how, I don't know, to like, okay, everybody has them now. Already everybody has smartphones. Everybody stares at the phone all day now. It's just a part of life. But can you relate it to something that, like, from the past, that you think the government's tried to slow down, but now then the government's just kind of it just bombarded them,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be like that, because I think it's, you want to have some regulation, to because housing is a tricky thing, right? I mean, if it's completely unregulated, then you're going to see some effects, I think, especially in the larger urban cities that you might not want to have. So I think that it's not going to be like this thing where like it's going to be completely 100% legal and unlimited and unrestricted everywhere. I think there's always going to be regulations. I think we have to find a status quo, right, where there's room for certain rentals, but it's not completely limitless, right? I think that's the way to go. I think that's how it's going to go. I think eventually, because now you see different regulations in different markets, I think over time it will kind of come to, like, the regulations and the situations that make most sense, I think will kind of be adopted around the world. But because right now it's like every market has different regulations, right? It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think there's still room to grow. I think some markets are obviously a little bit saturated, especially the markets where there's strict regulations coming up, or have already been put in place. But if you just look around the world, I mean, this is just it's part of travel as well, right? I mean, if you look at the travel industry, it's been growing. It's going to keep growing. People need a place to stay when they travel, and short-term rentals are here to stay. I think we're going to see a lot of hybrids where you have hotels that are not hotels, but like kind of they look like hotels, but they're really Airbnbs, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of that in the future. So before it was hotels and short-term rentals, I think there's going to be an overlap where it's kind of like in the middle,
blurred lines. Yeah. One thing I thought it was cool, because you actually had someone on your show a while back, a fellow Dutchman, who came on there and gave his case for why there should be more regulation. And he was kind of a little bit of an anti-Airbnb-er, even though he had an Airbnb in some other part of the world, where I forgot, Croatia or something. And so that was cool how you interviewed him, and you kind of agreed with him on some stuff. So what are some negatives that you've seen that Airbnb has brought to parts of the world?
Well, I mean, this particular person, he lives in Amsterdam, right? And I mean, imagine you live in the center of Amsterdam, or the center of Barcelona, or one of these really touristic cities, and and every other house is an Airbnb. So there's constantly there's people coming in and out. There's there's people throwing parties, and there's it kind of disturbs the whole neighborhood, right? The neighborhood loses its feel. I think there's there's kind of like a critical, how do you say that, critical point. Like you can have a number of short-term rentals in your neighborhood, but it can still feel like a residential local. It still has that local vibe. But I think at some point, if there's too many, then people, it loses the vibe. The energy changes, and then people want to go away, or they want to, they want to cut down on the amount of Airbnb. So, it's all about like you can do it up to the point where the whole neighborhood is just not feeling, it gets a different feeling, right? So I mean, I get it. I mean, if you live in one of those neighborhoods, like I wouldn't want to live in the center of Amsterdam, not just because of Airbnb, but I mean, it's just, the whole city center is just completely flooded with tourists. And then especially in Amsterdam, I mean, we have a lot of really awesome museums and there's a lot of stuff to do, but the reality is a lot of people come there to party and to try some substances that might not be legal in their own country. And so it's not necessarily the crowd that you really want in your city, right? I mean, so if you live there, right? So yeah, I get it. And that person that I interviewed, he's the one of the magazines, one of the most popular magazines in Holland. He's the editor, the chief editor of that magazine, and he was kind of stabbing at me a little bit, and so because he's so anti Airbnb, and of course, like I'm producing a lot of content around Airbnb, so he took a couple steps and thought, like, let's just invite him, let's just have a conversation.
But the irony is he actually had Airbnbs of his own.
Yeah, so I mean, he's not completely against the whole idea of Airbnb. I don't think it's just that it's gotten it's gotten a little bit out of control in some areas, some neighborhoods, and so so I see his point. But I think it's cool. We can all have differences of opinions,
Mm-hmm.
And so because you made a point about people coming to Amsterdam, partake in the marijuana. Now my question is this though. Since America, they've been slowly legalizing it here. Has there been like a decline in the travel to Amsterdam from here, or has this just mainly been from Europe, or has that had any effect at all?
I don't think it's had a big effect.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I think Amsterdam still has that appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So and also what we're seeing is a lot of tourists from China, Russia. A lot of people from there are visiting. So the amount of visitors is still going up. Even with all the Airbnbs in Amsterdam, the hotel stays actually never went down. Like it's been going up every single year. So that just shows you that, number one, I think Airbnb has promoted travel. So there's more people traveling because of Airbnb, right? So it's not like you have one pie and the hotel industry and the short-term rental industry has just divvy up that pie. I think Airbnb has created a bigger pie,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, no, visitors through Amsterdam have definitely not decreased at all.
So, and another thing, because you made a good point about the hotels and Airbnb being separate. Do you and Eric, you guys study this a lot more than me. So I want to know, like, is there any chart out there that has proved, or any city that we have seen, like, hey, Airbnb is straight killing the hotels? Is there? Do you know of a city out there? I don't. Okay.
No, really. The hotel industry has tried really, really hard to come up with a study that shows that Airbnb has a negative effect, right? Because they want those studies to use that to lobby with the policymakers, and so they've tried really, really hard. But I have yet to see one study that shows that, for example, they did this in Berlin, they did this in New York. The studies that come out, they're trying to prove that Airbnb is the cause of rising rents, right? Because that's what people don't like. That's the other reason why people don't like Airbnbs, because they think that Airbnbs have an influence on the rental rates, right? And so they're saying, oh, and the people in San Francisco are like, damn, my rent's so expensive. That's Airbnb's fault, right? Because it's very apparent. Like it's an easy scapegoat because if your neighbor is an Airbnb host, you look at that and you're like, oh, that's why my rent is so high, because there's an Airbnb here, right? But I mean, they can't prove it, and if they find any causal relationship, it's always like very minimalistic. It's like 0.5% or 1% or whatever. But I think, I mean, in certain neighborhoods, I'm sure there you could find an effect in certain neighborhoods, but overall, it's just the relationship is just not really there.
And it's for, yeah, and you brought up too. What'd you just bring up? You were saying about the them being saying like, hey, rents are going up because of Airbnb, and it's funny how Airbnb started was because rents were so high. So they had to start Airbnb in some rooms because the rent was so high. So yeah, it's really funny. It's because actually that's the reason why Airbnb was created, to combat that. So exactly, now they're blaming it.
But I mean, look at rents but start in 1990, right? Just look at a graph 1990 until now, and you'll see it's a line that's been going up for 30 years, right? Airbnb didn't really change that. Yeah. Right. But I mean, why are rents going up? I mean, I have my own ideas about it. And I believe it has to do with just interest rates going down, pushes up house prices. And I mean, can you believe that, I wrote this email about how I feel like we're kind of in a similar spot as we were in 2007. And one of the similarities is like, the house prices are all-time high, stock market, although it's gone down a little bit now, but I looked at, I was doing some research on this. In 2007, when the Federal Reserve started lowering rates, do you know what percentage, what number they started at when they started lowering the rate? When they started lowering it? Yeah. I think it was 2.75. In 2007, it was at 6.25.
Yep.
When they started lowering the rates.
Okay.
So it just tells you. It just shows you. I mean, and I think I'm a little older than you guys. I mean, I'm 42, and I think you guys are
42.
A bit younger. Okay, 42. All right, cool. That's just saying that to be safe.
Thanks, man.
I'm 30. Young buck.
I remember I used to get 5% interest on my savings, on my money in the bank. I used to get 5% interest. Damn. I mean, if you tell a young person that, they look at you like you're like an alien or something. They're like, "Are you high or something?" Like, what are you talking about? Interest on just like on a current account? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So so things have changed. Then it's pretty crazy.
So okay, let's just say let's have some fun here. Let's say the real estate market hits that bottom low. It peaks and it dips. What could you say would be the future of Airbnb hosts? Who's safe, who's not, and who has something to worry about in the short-term rental space?
So I think it depends on what model you're running. We talked about the free models before, right? Whether you own, lease, or manage, essentially. Okay. But yeah, I mean, when house prices are starting to go down, I think a lot of people have refinanced their mortgages in the last few years with the interest rates going down. And that means, what we saw in 2007 is the house prices started going down and people were underwater on their mortgage, right? People borrowed more money than the value of their home, right? And then what a lot of people did was, they didn't want to pay these mortgages, or they lost their jobs, and they would just they would give the keys to the bank, right, and just leave. And so, if that happens again, then what you're going to see is, a lot of people I spoke to a podcast. Sorry, I spoke to an Airbnb host who actually used Airbnb to stay in his property. Right, so the property was getting foreclosed, and so he was renting out a room in order to save his home essentially. So if you ask me, who's going to be in a good spot, who's not going to be in a good spot? Well, first of all, if you own a home, right, you need to, like, if you have some assets, some money in the home, so your mortgage is not right up there with the current house price. If you have, then you're not going to lose your home, right? So that's a good thing. I think also, certain markets are always going to be popular in travel in general, right? So it depends on the market where you're in as well. But yeah, it's hard to predict, man. It's hard to predict. One thing that I've learned from the last crisis is that you can't predict these things, right? Mm-hmm. You can't predict what's going to happen, and it always unfolds. I've been through 2 crises right now that I consciously recall, like the dot-com bubble and the financial crisis, which I remember very clearly because I was in the trading business back then. I was a trader, so I was in the middle of it. But it's hard to predict how things will unfold. But going back to what we were talking about before, I would just, me personally, I just don't want to take on a lot of risk right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture a guess in saying that the people who bought houses in order to Airbnb them, they're going to get crushed because they were looking at Airbnb numbers. They weren't looking at just regular rental numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's
people
true.
Do that?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. They snap them up all over the globe trying to, I can make $4,000 a month doing Airbnb. And let's say they ban it in the city or whatever, crisis comes, people don't travel no more. Yeah, they're just going to get creamed.
Yeah. Obviously there's going to be a lot of people in trouble. But then what happens with those houses, like those people will, they'll give the keys back to the banks, and now the banks are, they're holding the bag. I don't know if these banks have been selling these crazy, packaged loans to other investment banks, and that whole thing that collapsed in 2008. I don't know if it's that, if it's the same situation as back then. I don't know. I don't know how healthy the balance sheets are of the banks, how solvable they are, how much losses they can take. But I hope for the best. Let's hope for the best.
What's a quick one? Just last one. What's a good, with the market possibly going down or whatever, what's a good LTV to have on your house right now? 60%. What do you say is a safe point?
Like a what, LTV? Like
loan to value. Like how much equity?
Okay.
Like percentage? What equity percentage would be a safe value at this point right now?
I mean, it depends on your market because, in 2007, what we saw is that certain markets, like I bought a house in 2007 in Amsterdam. It hardly went down because I was in a neighborhood that was just so popular that as soon as the prices came down a little bit, buyers would come in, right? So I think it really depends on your market. Like back in 2007, I remember I was working in Chicago at a trading firm, and they were offering us free flights to Miami if we would agree on seeing at least 10 condos, right? And they were hoping that we would buy one, right? So, so obviously like some markets will go down more than others, but, I think a correction anywhere from 20 to 50%. If we really have a downturn, I think 20 to 50% is pretty realistic. All right. So,
I would pull all the money out of all your houses right now because then you go bankrupt and keep all the money, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Keep all the money and put it in the in a hole in the ground in the backyard.
Just fly to some remote island in the Pacific or something. bring all your money.
That's the beauty of Jasper's life, man. He don't got to worry about money. He's got friends in high places and everywhere places.
It's good to have friends.
It's good to have friends. I was going to ask, okay, more question from me. First timers, I know it's Yeah, we got all doom and gloom for a while there. This is the coronavirus episode a little bit, but like first timers who are like, I want to think about doing Airbnb. I want to try to get my house up and running, or a rental. I'm trying to switch it to an Airbnb. What's some golden advice from the man Jasper Rivers on how to start off doing Airbnb successfully?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends a bit on your situation, but I'd say a couple things, right? Number one, you have to educate yourself, right? You have to really know what you're doing, because hosts, like, thanks to people like you and you and I, we've been educating the world on this topic. So hosts in general are doing a better job. The markets have gotten more competitive. So I mean, if you own your own home and you wanna rent it out, when you're away, or you want to rent out like a spare room or something, those are situations that it's a little bit safer, because there's nothing really that can go wrong, right? I mean, if you go on holiday or you go travel for 2 months, you put it on Airbnb, and let's say one person rents it for 2 weeks and you make $2,000. That's just bonus, because otherwise it would have been empties, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the type of that's doing Airbnb in a way where you don't really have any risk at all. It's just a bonus. But then obviously, if you go out there and buy something with the intention of doing Airbnb, I would look at two things. I would look at, how much cash flow do you think it can generate, and then multiply that by 50%, and then see if you can still afford to pay that mortgage, right? Do that stress test just in case, right? And then also look at, you have to look at regulations as well. You have to make sure that they don't come out with some crazy regulations in the future. So you got to understand, like, are the people here against Airbnb? Is there friction? Are there any laws being discussed? Because you don't want to buy your place and then do Airbnb, and then a couple months later you're not allowed to do it anymore, right? So that's another thing you want to look at. And then in general, I'd say just be a little bit conservative with the numbers, with the projections, and again, I would rather, if you're going to find a new place to rent out, at this point, I would rather manage a few more people's places than rent or buy a few more places. Because also, if there's going to be a downturn, the best thing to have when things have collapsed is some cash on the sidelines, right? So, I'd like to have a little cash on the sidelines right now to take advantage when things really plunge, when prices start plunging. Yes, and again, sir. I don't know if they will, but I'm not a financial advisor. This is not advice to buy or sell anything. It's a disclaimer, but that's just my view.
I mean, I guess you look at history. What goes up must come down. It goes on in cycles, so I do see that happening. And in other words, first timers out there, to get started, buy Get Paid for Your Pad, the book, and then it'll teach you everything.
That's always good advice. But even on the blog, getpaidforyourpad.com, you can listen to 317 podcast episodes. You guys have 118, so I think together we have about 450. So, there's plenty of free information out there. But I think the most important thing is educate yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? You really have to understand the game now. You can't be like I was back in 2012, just spend an hour creating an Airbnb listing, and the next day the bookings start rolling in. Those days are over. It was nice, but those days are over. Yeah.
That's a great way to learn too, if you think about it. Just dive in then learn from your mistakes. That's how I did it. That's how you did it.
That's my favorite way to do it. But you can do that if you rent out a spare room or if you own the place.
Right.
But if you're going out there and getting a lease, like you need to be on the ball right away, because you're investing a bit of money there, and so you need to make sure that you're maximizing your listing, your income. You need to use technology, all that stuff.
One thing I've noticed in my arbitrage search, because I hit up Zillow. You know Zillow, of course, right?
Sure.
And I hit up Zillow, and I try to get a hold of these landlords, and I try to send them a message. Hey, I like your house. I'd like to go see it. Blah blah. And Zillow, it tells you response times, And some people's response times will be 10 hours. Some people will be 1 day or 2 days. I'm like, are they even trying to rent their damn houses? And it's not just people trying to rent long-term houses, but there's crappy Airbnb hosts all over the world that have, crappy response times. I mean, there's room. Like, if you go in there and you just you bust your ass and then be awesome at customer service, I mean, that's automatically gonna get you a little bit ahead of I don't know, 80% of the Airbnbers out there.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it depends on the market, right? I mean, I see markets where, I would say, 60, 70% of hosts are actually doing that, right? Mm-hmm. So there, it's a little bit harder to get ahead. But there's also markets, where what you're saying is 100% accurate, right? And I mean, if I look at one of my markets in Cali, in Colombia, I mean, when I bought my place there in 2017, I mean, I could hardly find any hosts who really were doing a good job. Right now, there's already more, so it changes quickly.
Mm. Good point. Well, man, this has been a great interview. We always love chatting at you, Jasper, and we're excited to see what you're doing in the future. You got any more questions for the great Jasper?
No, man, that was it, man. I'm definitely gonna sign up to be on your show. I'll come on for it.
Yeah, that'd be fun, man. That'd be fun. We'll have both of you guys on the show. We'll come up with a good topic, a little round table.
Not the topic we mentioned earlier off the air, right? unless you want to.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on for your second one? Yeah, second time around?
I think it's the third, man.
Third
time around, man.
The second time you couldn't make it. You couldn't make that.
I didn't make it?
Oh.
Yeah. It was just me and Jasper.
Oh.
But
right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was so third time, and looking forward to more in the future. Yeah, man. So where can people find you?
Yeah, Get Paid for Your Pad. That's the best place to go. That's kind of like the place where you can get all the free information, the blogs, the podcasts. On Amazon, you can find my book. There's a Kindle, there's audio, there's a print version. If you're looking to really grow a business, you can go to shorttermstrprofitacademy.com or shoot me an email. If you really want to grow your business, we have a coaching program for that. So you can always message me, email me at jasper@getpaidforyourpad.com.
No, would you mind? I mean, is it saying the prices, about what the prices are in the academy?
I mean, basically what we're setting it for is $2,500 and what you get is you get all the courses. So it's a video course, right? So we have a lot of content in there: how to build your business, how to find the properties, how to deal with the owners, how to pitch them, but also the hospitality aspect. We have a mindset course in there too, because we noticed that having a strong mindset is pretty important for any entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of combined our knowledge and everything that we've learned and put it in there. We've got a lot of resources, accountability system. We got trainings on different techs. But I think the most valuable part of our course is really the coaching calls. Like we get on the coaching call every single week, and people that buy our course can get those for a year. So you're getting 52 of those, right? So every week we're going on Zoom, we're answering questions, we're doing trainings on whatever is needed from our students. So a couple of days ago, we did a whole training on how to survive the coronavirus, right? What are some tips on getting bookings and all of that. So, I think being part of the community, we are very passionate about communicating, connecting with our students. So I think that's the most valuable part, being able to actually connect with us for an hour and bring your challenge to the group. We do hot seats. So you bring your challenge to the group in the hot seat. We give you feedback. The other students often chime in, and just having a support group. When you go on a call, you actually see people in front of you on the screen every single week with some support, advice, emotional support. Sometimes that's all what's needed. We all have our ups and downs, and it's just nice to have some people that can support you. So I think those coaching calls are the best. Now $2,500 is the retail, but when we do launches, we usually give people a deal So we'll have more launches coming in the future. In the next I don't know when you guys are publishing this, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for people to join and get a good deal.
Man, that is dirt to me. I mean, right up, it's dirt cheap, guys. $2,500, man. And I'm saying this because we've interviewed guys that that charge a shitload more, like kind of like $1,000 a month kind of thing going on. Or if you want direct contact with them, you're gonna be spending 10 G's or 20 G's. I mean, it's just insane. So $2,500 plus you get 52 weeks of or 52 coaching calls, man. That's dirt cheap. But
I mean, you can get a lot of our time if you want to, and the way that we look at it is like, like the way that I like to coach and support is like, if you're willing to put in a lot of effort and go out there and just crush it, I'm excited to give you extra time, and I'll jump on an extra call if you or something, because I love seeing that. So the students that are really, really active, they're getting a great deal essentially.
I tell people, man, if you got hustle, you can get a lot of stuff for free, man. And that's what I tell people that I coach too. I say, hey, man, if you got the hustle, you come back to me. We can work. I'll do a deal with you if I see you have hustle, man. All my time is yours.
I mean, it's fun to be part of a success journey, right? So if somebody's willing to really go out there and crush it, I'd love to be part of that. So I'll divide more of my attention.
I'm sorry, man. I just looked at my watch and just got a crazy ass message. The NBA has suspended the regular season due to the hiatus and will determine the next steps.
Oh,
that is insane.
That is
nuts.
Wow.
That is nuts.
Oh man. And the Dallas Mavericks are going to win it all this year, man. That's crazy. That sucks for them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just kidding.
That's crazy.
Just kidding with Mike. Man, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on with us again. I know you got a lot of work to do. Got some wine to drink afterwards and cold showers with your buddies, however you do it. But yeah, man, this is awesome. Seeing you on your journey, and then you inspired us to do more, and we stuck with it, and we're sticking with it, and we love it. We love Airbnb as much as you do, and not as much, but right there, close by. And we love the freedom it provides, and so I'm glad you're still out there, man, just helping people out, inspiring people, and you're the Tony Robbins of the Airbnb world. We love it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for having me on, and congrats on getting to 118 episodes. That's a pretty cool number.
Yeah, pretty cool, man.
Yeah, man, we're moving. So, guys, if you want to follow, by the way, Live, Let Thrive, we thank you guys for being listeners. Be sure to follow us on IG, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Check out Get Paid for Your Pad, the most inspiring podcast out there on the STR tip.
Boom.
And just continue listening. Thank you for listening. Leave us a review, rate us, subscribe on YouTube, and thank y'all for being listeners. And LLT is out.
Peace.
Peace, everybody.
Later.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.